disappeared from one day to the next. All that's now left of them are messages on the walls of prison cells.
بلادي وإن جارت علي عزيزة.
Documents that could have helped their loved ones find out what happened to them have been destroyed.
لا تحزني يا أمي هذا قدري.
And those responsible have run away. That's the fate of more than 100,000 missing Syrians.
Beaucoup de prisonniers, beaucoup de survivants, ils vont nommer la même personne, mais ça va être un nom du genre Abu Mohammed. Ça va pas être le nom correct de la personne.
United Nations investigators visited Syria's prisons, opened since the fall of Bashar al-Assad in December 2024. They're conducting one of the most complex investigations in modern history. We've examined their reports, we've collected the testimonies of detainees and their families, and we've followed their search for truth and for justice. Now I want to tell you their story.
بحثنا بكل زنازين السجن، بالأقضية، بكل مرافق السجن.
I met Abdulrazak al-Shami nearly 5 years ago. He's a journalist in the northwest Syrian city of Idlib, where he was covering the war. For as long as I've known him, he's been searching for his brother.
والدتي كانت تبكي دائما. نحن حاولنا دخلنا وسطاء اتصالات، لكن للأسف كل هاي المحاولات باءت بالفشل.
His brother, Wajih, deserted the Syrian army at the end of 2011. He refused to participate in the regime's crimes against civilians. It was the start of the Syrian uprising when thousands of people took to the streets, and his region of Dar'a in the southwest of the country was among the first to launch large-scale protests against the government.
كان لما نخرج بالمظاهرات يوم الجمعة كان يصير إطلاق نار عن المظاهرات يعني، وقتل كثير شباب من المشاركين بالمظاهرات أمام أعيني يعني، حتى أنا شاركت بإسعاف العديد من المصابين.
That's when the nightmare grew even darker. The government began cracking down, abducting people at protests, checkpoints, and in the regions taken back by government forces. The majority were adult men, like Wajih, but there are also women, boys, and girls. And in most cases, these people haven't been heard from in years. Forced disappearance is how rights groups describe it. The last time Abdulrazak heard news of his brother was here, a high-security prison known as Sednaya. It's been around since the 1980s, long before the war, and it's mostly famous now for one grim reason. It's where the Assad clan detained many dissidents. So on the day Assad's regime fell, it's the first place many detainees' families ran to. Over 1,000 prisoners were released on December 8, 2024, but the vast majority of those missing were not there. Abdulrazak has spent 2 days searching the prison for his brother, but he found nothing. And when investigators entered the prison, they found rooms full of destroyed evidence, a huge loss for the investigations into potential war crimes.
Des spéculations comme quoi c'était fait par des agents de l'ancien gouvernement avant de partir, ou juste après. Mais ce qui est très clair, c'est que c'était complètement intentionnel. Parce qu'on voit des salles qui ont été complètement brûlées et juste à côté, il y a peut-être des documents qui sont intacts parce qu'ils n'étaient pas vraiment dans l'archive principale, ils étaient dans des petits couloirs, dans des bureaux séparés.
In the chaos, other files were damaged or stolen. Families of missing persons launched a petition calling for the remaining evidence to be protected. They want answers now. And former detainees have started sharing the truth about what really happened in these prisons. Shadi is only 32 years old, but has spent 6 years in detention.
أصعب شيء بيكبوا مية بالأرض وبيجيبوا الكهرباء بيحطوه على قضيبك. هون بكهربوك هون ما عاد في شو ما كنت عندك تعترف شو ما كان وفي عندك شبح لورا هاي الشبح لورا هاي كمات ملعونة بيرفعك تشبح لورا بتصير يديك لورا معلقة
Investigators say the regime tortured people to obtain information or force confessions, and sometimes just to punish and intimidate them. The Syrian Network for Human Rights listed at least 72 types of torture used in the regime's prisons, including stress positions, mutilation, and sexual violence. Some even had nicknames given by the prisoners or their jailers. They call one method the dangling one. It's when a detainee is suspended in the air for long periods by one of both arms. They also waterboarded them and burned parts of their bodies. The UN's Commission of Inquiry says that the volume, scale, and structure of the torture constitute crimes against humanity. And one particular source of information has especially helped them conduct their investigation.
Il y avait beaucoup de gens qui ont été forcés à servir dans l'armée, qui ont été forcés à servir dans les services de renseignement. Donc, il y a aussi des gens qui vont vouloir parler aussi de leur souffrance, parce qu'eux aussi, ils sont des victimes de ce système.
This man is one of the most famous deserters in Syria, Farid al-Madhan, also known as Caesar, a photographer for the army. He took nearly 55,000 photos of prisoners who died in detention between March 2011 and August 2013, when he deserted the army. But what his superiors didn't know was that the pictures would go on a flash drive, sometimes hidden in his socks. After years in hiding, he revealed his identity publicly for the first time on Al Jazeera.
كرأي شخصي، أوامر التصوير كانت تصدر من أعلى هرم السلطة من أجل التأكد بأن أوامر التعذيب والقتل قد تمت فعلياً، وأنه لم يتم هروب أي معتقل بواسطة أو محسوبيات.
The bodies were only categorized by numbers, but more than 700 families were able to recognize their loved ones. But not Abdurrazak. His brother was arrested in 2018, several years after these photos were taken. The UN documented cases of torture and summary executions in 80 prisons across the country.
Ce qu'on sait depuis tellement d'années d'enquête, c'est que le gouvernement antérieur, il documentait méticuleusement ces actes. Et on sait aussi qu'il y a beaucoup de détenus qui ont été transférés d'un centre à l'autre, d'un service de renseignement à un autre. Donc, on espère que même si les traces sont brûlées et perdues dans un lieu, il peut y avoir les mêmes actes ou les mêmes documents ou quand même des renseignements sur une personne peut toujours exister dans un autre lieu.
This dark bureaucracy is now many Syrians' only hope to find out what happened to the ones they loved. The dead were photographed, prison entries and exits were recorded, and death certificates were filed. But these are often full of gaps and falsehoods. The regime rarely recorded that people died inside the prison, and documents almost always claim that the cause of death is cardiac arrest. And during the regime, it was typical for families to never receive the bodies of their loved ones. Now, former security and army officials have been clear. Dozens of people died in prison every week, the vast majority due to violence or the squalid conditions of detention. There could be 20 or more deaths per day at times. So, where have all these people gone? Humanitarian groups have discovered at least 12 mass graves in southern Syria, and that's just the beginning. Human rights groups say there could be up to 66 mass graves across the country. Syria's White Helmets are calling for a major campaign to collect DNA from the families of the missing. It's a solution that's more complicated than it sounds.
DNA is not a magic bullet. It's not like in the TV or CSI, in one day they get a solution. And also keep in mind the cost. To analyze a DNA from a bone, the price is around $400-500. So you multiply this cost, it's going to be enormous. That's why we need to use DNA, but together with the other specialties to have a comprehensive analysis of the bodies.
2 days after our first interview, Abdurrazak contacted me again. He tracked down a prisoner from Sednaya who claimed to have information about his brother.
هذا المعتقل مجرد عطيناه اسم بقي ففورا عرفه وقال إيه هذا السجين كان معي بنفس الزنزانة بسجن صيدنايا، وعطانا اسمه مواليده ووين كان، يعني كتير معلومات أكدت إنه هذا أخي.
But it's exactly as he feared. The prisoner told him his brother was executed in 2022.
قبل 3 أيام بيتم عزله وبيتم منع الأكل والشرب عنه، يعني يتم تجويع المعتقل ومنع الطعام والشراب عنه بحيث إنه يصير جسده منهك. هاي المعلومة كتير صعبة ومؤلمة يعني صراحة يعني.
The search for justice has only just begun with the first arrest of regime officials. Among them, the head of military justice, Mohammed Kanjo Hassan, said to have handed down thousands of death sentences at Sidnaya. And Atif Najib, the head of the political security services in Dar'a and a cousin of Bashar al-Assad. He was in charge when the protests broke out in 2011. Investigators established a list of 4,000 names of alleged perpetrators from all parts of the country and the conflict. But many senior officials have fled abroad, so the new Syrian authorities have asked other countries to hand them over. That's technically possible with Arab countries like Lebanon and Iraq, which have long-standing extradition agreements. But Russia or European countries have little chance of cooperating. For families like Wajih, it only adds to the pain. Second floor, right wing, cell number 6. Abdulrazak went back to Sidnaya, and this time he knew exactly where to go. He went looking for messages Wajih could have left behind in his old cell, but no luck. Today, he is among those celebrating the fall of the Assad regime. He says he has no regrets, even though he says the revolution cost him what was most precious to him.
أخي وجيه كان إنسان كتير طيب، قلبه طيب، روحه مرحة، كانت الابتسامة دائما مرسومة على وجهه، كان شخص غير أناني، كان دائما يفكر بمساعدة الآخرين على حساب مصلحته الشخصية.
He still doesn't know where his brother's body is. His search continues, like thousands of other families across the country. A year has passed. Patience is beautiful, and God is the one we turn to for help. This moment shall pass. Mom, Dad, I miss you. When you fight your wars, think of those who ask for peace.